Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Abili Chabalenge. I talk about scholarship. So in this video, this is part 2 of the Swedish Institute Scholarship for Global Professionals, and I will be continuing from where I ended in my first video. If you've not watched the first part of the video talked about the introduction to the scholarship, eligibility criteria that you need to read through for you to determine if you are eligible for this scholarship, the application timeline that you should expect when you're applying for this scholarship, and also the application for admission. So before you apply for the scholarship, you need to be admitted in the 4 universities that you are going to select. So your first part, before you apply for the scholarship, you need to have applied for admission, which is a separate process through the centralized system for applying for admission of the courses. So in this video, I'll be talking about how you are supposed to complete the various documents that are provided for the scholarship. So the Scholarship Institute, the Swedish Institute, they've already provided the templates that needs to be completed, and once the application for the scholarship opens, which will open on the 9th of February to 25th of February, all you need to do will be to upload the required documents and also write a motivation. So this video is basically about applying for the scholarship, what type of templates you need to complete. So I'll be talking about the requirements for the scholarship, completing your CV, which is required for the scholarship, providing the proof of readership and proof of work experience, also providing reference letters that are required, how we are supposed to provide reference, and this will culminate into the tips for the references, what kind of information you should be able to give your referee, because you cannot write the references on your own. So basically, this is the content of this presentation. So let's go in and start with the requirements for the scholarship. So what are the requirements for the scholarship? So the first thing is that you need to submit your CV as part of applying for the scholarship. So you'll be required to submit the CV in the approved template. So there is a template that is provided. If you've not seen it, please go to the Swedish Institute website and you'll be able to see the template for the CV, which you need to download and follow the instruction to submit, which I'll basically be explaining in this video on how you'll be able to complete and provide a compelling CV that will make you stand out from someone who just providing a general CV. The other thing that you need to provide will be reference letters. So basically these will be from your referees, and I will also delve much into how the referee is supposed to complete the forms. Proof of work experience that you need to provide for the work experience that you are going to provide in your CV. Proof of leadership, again, for the leadership experience that you are going to provide in your CV or your curriculum vitae. You also need to submit a valid passport at the time of applying for the scholarship. So if you do not have a passport at the moment, this is the best time for you to ensure that you obtain one passport before the application for the scholarship opens. So you have basically over 2 months for you to prepare, and this is the reason why they've also issued these documents in advance for you to enable you to get the correct CV, for you to make the correct references that are required to be submitted. So they've already issued the templates well in advance to when the scholarship is going to open on the 9th of February 2026. And finally, as part of applying for the scholarship, you will be required to provide a motivation. Now, this motivation is a question that is inside the application portal, so it's not yet out. I'll be able to guide you on how to complete the motivation once the scholarship opens next year on the 9th of February. And they've categorized that you'll be able to write this motivation inside the application system, and if you are selected to provide a video, you'll be required to make a short recording of yourself on what motivates you to apply for the scholarship. So please be ready when that time comes for you to provide that motivation that will be required. So in this video, we are going to go ahead and see how you are able to complete these forms or templates that have been provided that are required. It's important that you prepare them well in advance so that once the scholarship opens, you just be able to submit as required. Okay, so we are going to start with a curriculum vitae, and before we delve much into how you're supposed to complete your CV, you need to know some of the information before you complete your CV. And what is that information that you need to know? The first thing that you need to know is that do not change the format of the template that is provided for the CV. Submit the template as it is. You're just replacing the information by putting information that is required for the CV. The first page, yes, can be deleted as you are merging your PDFs for uploading, because it just provides the basic instructions for you to complete the CV. However, the actual information that is required on your CV, do not change the format, use the same format and only edit the required sections. And if you need to delete a section that is not applicable to your CV, then you can delete that information. Okay. Only delete unused headings or information like I have mentioned. The other thing that you need to know before you complete your CV is that the CV that you are going to submit should have a maximum of 3 pages. If your CV is more than 3 pages, then your application will be rendered unacceptable and it will not be considered for the scholarship. You will be ineligible for the scholarship. So please do follow clear instructions that is provided. All CVs that are more than 3 pages, the rest of the pages will not be considered as they are reviewing your CV. So they will just consider your first 3 pages. So ensure that all the critical information that needs to be provided in your curriculum vitae meets the requirement and are provided within the 3-page document for the CV. The other thing that you need to ensure is that all the information in all the section are provided in the reverse chronological order. So you start with your most recent information going backwards. So if you are providing information on your work experience, you start with your current work experience, then you go to the previous experience where you left or whatever you did. So you start with the current and going backwards in all the sections. So please do follow this instruction as you are completing the curriculum vitae. The next thing that you need to ensure before you start completing the essay is to understand the aims and objective of the scholarship. So the scholarship emphasizes on demonstrating you as an applicant that you are eligible for the scholarship, you have committed yourself to development, and therefore you need to demonstrate your leadership skills, your networking skills, your influence that you have. And therefore you need to brainstorm before you write your CV from the wealth of experience that you have over the years. Which one would stand out in terms of showcasing your leadership experience? Which one would stand out in terms of showcasing your networking experience? Which one would stand out in terms of showcasing your voluntary experience? And from that wealth of experience, then you narrow down and choose only those that you are going to include to demonstrate the requirement for the work experience and also for the leadership experience, because the same examples that you are going to provide in your CV for leadership and work and other work experience is the same that you need to provide proof for when you complete the proof for work experience and the proof for leadership. So you cannot provide a separate information about your work experience in a CV and provide proof of work experience, which is another different experience, in the proof of work experience form. So they need to tally. You need to provide the same information. So before you complete these forms, it is important that you brainstorm, you select the best examples that are going to show case your leadership, your networking, your community engagement and commitment to the objectives of the scholarship. And once you do that, then you can go ahead and complete the form. So here I'm providing examples of how a bad CV would look like and how a good CV would look like. So this is a poorly written CV that you would see. This is by W certified, and this person is from Lusaka, Zambia. That's their phone number, their email address, the mail, and that's the date and citizenship. So why am I saying that this is a poorly written CV? For this section of the CV which talks about the personal information. A good written CV would look like this, where the full names are written in full. As you can see here, you've written W certified, so do not abbreviate your names. You need to provide your names in full. So the full name should be provided. The second thing that we are able to see is that there is a full address that is provided here, as compared to here where this person has just provided the city and the country where they are from. So you provide your full address for yourself. And when it comes to the phone number, you can see that we've also included the country code has been included to the phone number. So include the country code on the phone number. It's very clear on the form. If you do not include that, then your CV is not complete. So ensure that you include the country code, and also pay much particular attention to the formats of the dates. Quite all right, this date, as you can see, is different from this date. So follow the exact kind of date that is provided in the form for the CV. The CV requires you to start with the year, the month, and the date. So do not change to the format that you are used to, where you start with the day, the month, and the year, or any other form of the format for your date. So please do follow the instructions that are provided in the form and ensure that you provide this section correctly as it's supposed to be provided. So this is how we will be able to complete correctly the section for your personal information. When it comes to work experience, again on top I've provided an example of a poorly completed work experience, and then on top or bottom I've provided how a good CV would look like. So for the first thing is that, again, we are looking at the date. So the date is not complete. You've only included 2021 there, but here the date is completed. So please ensure that you follow the format like I've mentioned. The first thing that you provide there is your title for that work experience. So here this person has just written work as a program officer. However, a complete title is provided below, and this is how it should provide. So provide the complete title of your position for each work experience that you're going to include in the form. So in this case, it will be Program Officer, Health System Strengthening. And then you provide the institution. In this case, it's not just to provide as Minister of Health. Here, the person is providing it clearly as Minister of Health, Director of Public Health, and this is based in Lusaka. So you complete, and then you give a description of your responsibilities or whatever you did, clearly demonstrating that they were either leadership or they were for volunteering. So in this case, you shouldn't just say assist with district program activities. It should be something that is a bit detailed and showing exactly what you did. In this case, you would say coordinated district level implementation of health system strengthening activities. You're supervising 6 health focal point responsibilities. So you are including all the numbers to quantify the impact or to demonstrate how much of involvement you are in that work experience. So this is what you need to include. When it comes to the industry or sector, do not just say public or do not just say health. You give a clear and complete description of the industry or the sector for that work experience. In this case, it's public health, and it's under the government or the government. Then you give a brief description of the organization. So when you're giving a brief description of your organization, you need to ensure that you state the size of the institution, the mission, the aims, and the activities that you do for that organization. So in this case, we would say the Ministry of Health is Zambia's national health governance institution with over 2,000 employees across the nation, and sub-national levels and supervising services, and what. So you give a clear size, mission, and activities of what that organization is doing. And then one thing that I didn't mention when it comes to the responsibilities, as you are completing the responsibility, ensure that you do not just copy and paste your job description. You need to revise your job description and ensure that you use strong description of your job description. Use strong verbs. Use words like you led, you managed, you coordinated. Those shows that you are showing your strong responsibility. So use strong verbs to characterize or to describe your job description. Do not just copy. What is on your job description? Anyone can copy and paste. So you want to stand out from others. And how do you stand out? You refine the words by using such strong verbs like you led, you managed, you coordinated. And this is going to be very clear to the leader as they are reading, okay, this person knows what they are doing and they know how to provide their CV. So do not just copy and paste your responsibilities into the form. So you refine them and use strong verbs. Right, when it comes to the education system, again, you are supposed to provide all your education system and ensure that the principal subjects of matter are listed. You cannot list all of them, but at least list the principal subject and the skills that you gained, if there are any skills that you gained. And as you can see, what is provided here down is more comprehensive, unlike someone who just provide this information here. Okay, so it's very clear, the date is correct, the description of their degree is in full, and they've also included that they got a distinction. So that, again, when the reader is reading your CV under education, they will know that, okay, this person is of an academic excellence, they got a bachelor's degree in public health and with a distinction. So ensure that you include such honors or any top percentile that you had gotten, whether it's a GPA of 4 or whatever class of your degree is. Include such information as you are writing, and that can be very clear to the reader to demonstrate your requirements for meeting this section of the scholarship. Okay, when it comes to your networking and civil engagement, again, the same thing. You need to be very comprehensive in writing. Do not just write one sentence, and that is the reason why at the beginning of this section I mentioned that you need to have done a bit of brainstorming so that you are able to select the best examples that you are going to use in your CV. So show clearly and demonstrate commitment to the society. Winning a scholarship is not about selfish interest because you got this and you got a good paying job. No. You need to demonstrate that even if you got a good paying job, you are committed to the society, and you should be able to showcase how you've been able to demonstrate that commitment. How have you been engaged with the community through your networking and also other engagement. So you clearly indicate what you've been able to do by quantifying your achievement. Use numbers. Scholarship providers, when they are reading these information, the essay information or the scholarship documents, they love numbers. They want to see percentages because they quantify how much impact you are already making even before they select you. So include numbers, include percentages, and ensure that the organization that you are presenting that networking experience or civil society engagement experience is given a full description, like I mentioned, under work experience. So you give the size of that institution, what is their objective or their mission, and what activities they carry out. So the same thing applies. Ensure that it's detailed. You are not just copying and pasting responsibilities. You are describing them using strong verbs, like you delivered this training for the volunteers, you supported, you advocated, you did this. So use such words as you are writing all the sections of your CV. Okay, when it comes to the previous scholarship and awards, so if you do not have any previous scholarship or any award, this section can be deleted. Otherwise, if you have it, ensure that it's again comprehensive. You write the name of the institution of the award and also exactly what award you got. So in this case, this was about the Health Leadership Fellowship for 6 months, and it was held in Lusaka, and this was selected merit-based. So again, by including the mode of selection, which was selected based on academic excellence, it already shows to the reader that you are able to be given this scholarship because you are of an academic excellence or you have strong leadership, whatever is or whatever made you stand out during that award, include it, and that is also going to demonstrate to them that you are already a strong candidate. However, in this section, please do avoid to list certificates that you just participated in, maybe like a one-day workshop. Those should not be listed in this section. It's very clear it's previous scholarship or those awards such as fellowship that you would have won. So do not include certificate of participation or other form of CPD information. You should provide those that are really either a scholarship or their awards. Maybe you are a best student, you are awarded as an overall student in that cohort, you are given a scholarship to study, or maybe you are given an award to do a business course or an award to do business or entrepreneurship or whatever that is. Include the relevant information. So only significant awards or funded program. If you receive the merit-based recognition, highlight it like I have mentioned. In this case, you are selected based on academic excellence, and that will be able to enhance your CV, and it can make your CV stand out from others as they are doing their reading and trying to select who the best candidate will be for the award. Right, so now once you've written your CV, or the section have been written, so you provided your CV with your work experience, which should have a maximum of 3 work experience, and you also provide your networking and your involvement in civil activities, which should have a maximum of 2 experience. Then what do you do now after you've completed the CV? What do you need to note? The first thing is that check for consistent across the document, like I've mentioned. Check that you've completed the dates in the format that is correct. Ensure that those unused sections, you've deleted them and everything is provided correctly. The second thing that you need to do is to trim unnecessary text. So if there are any texts that are not needed, that are part of this form, delete them, but do not delete unnecessary text. So each section of the CV is provided with the information that needs to be deleted or completed. So if those are unused, then trim them, delete them, but do not delete information that is not required. The other thing that you need to do is to convert your Word CV into a PDF, excluding the first page, which is the page providing instruction on how you are going to complete the form. And once you do that, you'll be required now to merge the any documents. But if there are no other things to merge, so you should not merge any other attachment. Sorry for that. No other attachment should be merged to the CV. It's other documents that I'm going to talk about which needs to be merged. So once you convert in PDF, then that CV is ready, and we'll move on to the next document that needs to be provided, which is a proof of work experience and leadership. Again, I want to emphasize the type of leadership and work experience that you're going to provide is the same work experience and leadership that you have provided on your CV. So you're not going to provide a different work experience and different leadership or civil engagement experience from what you provided on the CV. If you provide different information from what is on the CV, then you are automatically disadvantaging yourself and you're not going to get a scholarship. So you need to ensure, again, as you're completing the proof of work experience and leadership, that the dates, the job titles, and your responsibilities you certified on your CV are the ones that are included on these documents, like I've mentioned. Again, correct calculation of hours. So again, this is very important that you calculate the hours that you're going to complete on the proof of work and leadership experience. There is a component that talks about hours and work, hours for your work experience and hours for your leadership experience. So those should be correctly completed. How should they correctly be completed? So here is an example. So for example, if you are in a full-time employment, it is assumed that for a full-time employment, the minimum the minimum number of hours that you can work per week is 40 hours. So this translates per day that you are working for about 8 hours. If you are working from Monday to Friday, so that is 8 hours a day, and that translates into 40 hours a week. And it is assumed that in a year you are going on to work for 50 weeks at the maximum. You cannot work for the whole 52 weeks because there are holidays, there are weekends, and also there's also sometimes you are on leave, so you're not working. So the maximum number of working weeks should not exceed 50 weeks. And you should ensure that this is met within the 3 work experience that you are going to provide. They should be able to meet the minimum requirement for this scholarship, which is the 3,000 hours. So if you work for full time, you work 40 hours for 50 weeks, then the total number of hours you would have worked for a year will be 2,000 hours in that work experience. If there is a second work experience for part-time, where you're working 10 hours per week for 40 weeks in a year, then that will translate to 400 hours. So if you provide 3 work experience where they were all full-time and you have different years, you can include those different years, and then the total number of hours you'll be able to add them up. So in this case, we are just considering that this is one person who has a full-time employment. They have also 2 part-time employment for them to demonstrate that they meet the minimum 3,000 hours that are required for the scholarship. So the second experience they have is part-time, 10 hours for 40 weeks for a year, and this would translate into 400 hours. Their third work experience is part-time again. They are working for 25 hours for 40 weeks. This was done over a period of 2 years, and therefore the total hours that they would have accumulated in this work experience will be 2,000 hours. And then when we add them up for the 3 work experience that this person has provided, they will translate to 4,400 hours, which is exceeding the 3,000 minimum hours, which is very fine. So do not be worried that no, you only need to provide 3,000 work hours. If you have more, and those can be demonstrated in the maximum of 3 work experience, include them. It does no harm. The 3,000 hours is only a minimum to ensure that you meet. You can go to 15,000. That will even demonstrate that you have a long work experience, or you have a long leadership experience if you demonstrate like that. So the 3,000 is not a must meet and then you stop there. That is just the minimum, so you can exceed to demonstrate that you even have more than what they are requiring as a minimum work hours for the scholarship. Okay, so once that is done, the next thing now is on the leadership part. So from the wealth of experience that you've provided, in this example we are saying is 4,000 total hours of work experience. So out of the 4,400 work hours, if only 1,500 was in leadership position, then on the leadership experience form, the proof of leadership experience form, you are only going to include the 1,500 hours. Okay. The other thing is that maximum form to merge should be 3 for the work experience, because you are required to provide 3 work experience in your CV, and 2 leadership experience because you are required to provide 2 examples of your leadership experience in the CV. Altogether, they should be able to demonstrate a minimum of 3,000 hours. How to write the work experience task section? So again, in these 2 forms, the proof of work experience and the proof of leadership experience, there is a section that requires you to write your work specific task. So the other things are self-explanatory. I'm not going to explain how to complete those sections because they are self-explanatory when you are reading through the form. But I thought this section for work-specific task is very important, and you should be able to know how to fill in, because you cannot just copy and paste your work task. You need to write them to meet the number of characters that have been stated on the form. So you need to be very careful in the way you write them. So for full time, if you worked for 500 weeks hours, what are you going to do? You are going to ensure that you write your strong action verbs, like I mentioned before. So you coordinated, you led, you managed, you implemented, you supervised. So use these strong action verbs as you are writing this section of your work task. I think this was a mistake. You can take rid of the first point. The point that I needed to mention is that you do not copy and paste exactly the work task that you did. You need to use strong action verbs to ensure that you meet the task and you explain everything that needs to be explained. The other thing that you need to ensure is that you do not use filler words as you are explaining, like especially if this is going to be completed by your supervisor, especially that they will need to sign on this form and confirm or authenticate the proof of your work experience. So if you give your supervisor to write this, they should not write that he usually participated in. You should start with participated in ABC and show the results of what you did. Use numbers like I've mentioned, and that will increase your credibility. It shows the number of staffs that you supervised, the facilities that you covered. Maybe you covered 6 facilities, or maybe you were a consultant and you consulted for 5 firms. Include the numbers and percentages, and also the scale of the program should be included. So this is an example of how you would be able to fill in either your leadership experience or your work experience, this section for the work specific task, for you to prove this experience. So you can write like led 12 community health volunteers, assigned outreach schedules, monitor performance, coordinated monthly planning sessions that expanded household coverage from 1,200 to 2,000 homes. So again, here you are able to see that this person led this number of community health worker volunteers. What did they do? They assigned, they monitored, and they coordinated. So these are strong action verbs that will demonstrate the proof of your leadership experience or your community engagement. And also the results is also provided. There is an increase because of this result of your leadership from 1,200 to 2,000 homes that were reached. So this is how you'll be able to complete this work specific task section of the proof of leadership or the proof of work experience section. If your supervisor is the one who is completing this form, so please talk to them so that they use such information as they are completing them, for them to provide as a proof of your work experience, because they will have to sign and endorse that indeed they authenticate that you really did this work experience that you are providing. You really did this. You were actually involved in the community engagement that you are providing on your CV, and you are trying to prove as your proof of your leadership. You cannot provide these forms without them endorsing them. So you need to ensure that the correct information is provided and you meet the requirement of the form by completing the number of characters that are required, by clearly demonstrating to them your leadership tasks. Okay, so once that is done, we move on to the next form that needs to be provided, and this is the reference letters. So you will be required to provide 2 reference letters for the scholarship. The first reference that needs to be provided, or one of the reference letters that needs to be provided, and it's a must be from your work experience. So from among your work experience, especially your current work experience, you should be able to provide a reference for that work experience. Your second reference can be an academic reference where you get it from your former lecturer. It can be a readership, it can be networking based. However, for me, considering the objective of the scholarship is trying to demonstrate how you are involved in the development of your community, I would suggest that your second reference comes from either your readership or your networking involvement and not your academic involvement. So please try by all means to ensure that you provide the reference that shows your readership or your networking involvement in the community, in addition to your work experience reference. That is going to be well aligned with the requirement of the scholarship in terms of its objective. And this should be written by the referees and not yourself. There is enough time. We are still in November, so you have the whole of December and the whole of January for you to talk to the referees and ensure that they provide the correct information. So my advice is that start now. After you've done your brainstorming, you know the type of work experience that you need to include in the form, you know the type of leadership and your community engagement experience that you need to provide in the form. You should be able to have identified who is going to be your referee at the moment based on the requirement, and also inform them that you're applying for this scholarship and these are the forms that are required and this is the requirement that they'll need to provide this reference according to the form, the way it is. It needs to be date stamped or notarized, whichever case it is, for it to be authenticated, and it's supposed to be provided in good time. So engage them now and give them enough time for them to complete, guide them so that they are able to give you comparing information and not rush them at the last minute. Trust me, if you go to them at the last minute, if you just decide to go and request for these references in February or towards February 2026, you are going to start panicking. And this is the reason why these templates have already been published well in advance, 2 months, 3 months before the opening of the scholarship. They know the reason why they've done that. So follow the instruction, ensure that you start providing the information that is required to your referee for them to complete your references and give you the references well in advance that meets the requirements, so that you put them and just start waiting for the scholarship to open for you to submit. So who can be your referee? Someone who knows you professionally, and this can be someone like the HR at your workplace. For readership and networking experience, it can again be your supervisor or your HR if you're involved in that work experience. Like I've mentioned, you give them enough time for them to give you good recommendation. You cannot use your brother, you cannot use your relatives to provide this experience. If you are not working for any organization, you are self-employed, there is a guidance on how you're supposed to provide those references and how they're supposed to be stamped. So follow that instruction. However, it is expected that most of you are working, but if you're not in formal employment, you are doing your own business, you follow the instruction and ensure that the correct person notarize your work experience or the correct person provide the work experience. So what are the tips that you need to provide to your referee for them to give you a correct and comparing reference that meets the requirements? So prepare your referee well in advance before they give you the reference. What are you supposed to give them? So give them the following to the referee. So you give them your updated CV, and this updated CV should show the exact information that you are providing in your CV. So do not provide them with a general CV that will include even information that you're not going to provide in your CV. So give them your updated CV that you're submitting for the scholarship, so that the reference is based on the work experience and the leadership that you have included in the CV. So you give them your most updated CV for the scholarship. Give them a summary of all other achievements, especially on leadership and community engagement. This will be essential for them to write 3 or 4 paragraphs to support your application on how you are best suited for the scholarship. So give them a summary of your achievement that they will be able to highlight in the reference. And also mention to them the program that you've applied for, so that it's included, they are able to state on the reference. So since you're applying for 4 programs, if you have different 4 programs, they have different names, then you give them all the 4 different names, and in this case they are going to provide the same reference, but in the section which talks about the program or the course, they should be able to give the specific name of the course for that reference that they are providing, because when it comes to uploading, you are going to upload these references based on each of your application that you are going to make for. You are required to apply for admission into 4 courses. So even when you are making your scholarship application, you'll be required to make 4 separate application and upload this document in each of the application. Your motivation and your goals for the scholarship, what motivates you to apply for this scholarship, and what are the goals that you have, more like what are your future plans that you have should you be awarded this scholarship. This information is very helpful for them to include as they will be able to write your references, and also remind them about the submission deadline so that they are able to work well within the period before the scholarship opens, and to ensure that you submit your documents before the deadline. And also provide them with the Swedish Institute Scholarship instruction form. It is well known that once you give them the form, they'll be able to read through the first page, which talks about the instructions, and they'll be able to follow it up. But once that is done, you should also be able to go through the reference that they'll be able to give you to ensure that they meet the requirements. So what should you suggest that they include to each section of the scholarship? So the first part is the part that talks about them giving a reference on how the scholarship will enhance your professional growth. There is a section that talks about how they should be able to comment on what they think the scholarship will be able to enhance your professional growth. So suggest to them that they should be able to connect your master's goals, so the goals that you've given to them, that this is what you want to do, to your work performance, what you've done and what you want to do and how we are going to do it. So they should be able to connect between your course goals, what you've chosen to study, to your course, to your work experience that you've done previously, and how you are going to do it in future after you've gained the skills that you're going to gain from that course. So they should be able to connect in that sense. For example, this scholarship will strengthen her technical capacity in health system analysis, which she will apply to national health programming. Remember, the example that I've given was talking about someone who is in health system strengthening, and they studied public health. So in this sense, the scholarship which they are trying to apply for will enhance their technical capacity in terms of health system analysis, and this will be applied in future because that is their goal, to work in this space in terms of making national health programs. So that is how they will be able to write. But this is just one sentence. They should be able to write enough sentences to ensure that they demonstrate that indeed you are worth the scholarship and you are going to grow professionally. So this section, they should be able to demonstrate clearly on how the scholarship will enhance your professional growth. When it comes to the second part, which talks about your capacity to drive social change, again, they should be able to highlight the project that you led that led to improvement in the community, advocacy or civil society engagement. So that's why I'm saying you need to provide them with the list of your achievements so that they are able to include them as they are writing a reference for you. They should be able to demonstrate the impact that you've made on your community or on the vulnerable groups. If you've done such impact, they should be able to demonstrate that you are a good leader, you have your own initiatives, and you show problem solving. So you take your own initiative. You're not just limited to your job description. You usually go beyond your job description to develop impact. So that should be showcased also. Then when it comes to the other part, that should be able to demonstrate your leadership potential. Again, in that sense, ensure or suggest to them that they highlight how you have been able to motivate others, or the times that you took initiative. Like I've mentioned, you went beyond your job description. How were you able to go beyond your job description? So suggest to them, you give them the information on how you did that, so that they are able to include that in there. The reference, they should also be able to give examples on how you demonstrate your critical and analytical thinking. As a leader, you should be able to demonstrate critical and analytical thinking, how you've been able to showcase initiative and also problem solving again, and also your direction, your direct contribution. So it's about you as a leader. So how were you able to directly contribute? It should be able to come out. So they should be able to show the results of your direct contribution. And this is an example where they will be able to say he designed an outreach model used by the district, and this led to 90% compliance in terms of reaching the community or something like that. So that demonstrates how directly you were involved in the leadership, because you were able to design this outreach model. So you suggest to them to include such information, and that's why I suggested at the beginning of this reference that you need to give them the following information to guide them as they are completing the reference. Okay, and the other thing that I'm emphasizing again is the use of numbers, the use of percentages. This would demonstrate the impact that you are creating. So they should be able to say you led a team of 5, you trained 200 volunteers, you did this and this and this. That shows that indeed you are creating impact even before you are selected for the scholarship, and you are therefore worth sponsoring the scholarship. Okay, so once the references have been provided to you successfully, what do you need to ensure that they are before you submit? Again, so ensure they are completed in English, or they are translated. If they are not in English, they are translated and they are stamped with the official stamp or by the notary. So if your referee does not have the stamp, they should endorse it, and then the notary should be able to provide the stamp, or the official stamp for that organization should be able to be provided on the references. It's very important. Without the references, then the scholarship institute cannot confirm the authenticity of your reference that you are providing, and therefore your application will not be considered for the award. Ensure that each reference is not more than 2 pages. Again, that is a very clear instruction that is given, ensuring that each reference is not more than 2 pages long. And once you give you the 2 references, you simply merge them and they will be able to be uploaded. So the referee should use, again, the work email and the full title. So they shouldn't use their at yahoo.com, at gmail.com. They should be able to use their work email and their full title. If they are the human resource, they should be able to state they are the senior human resource, or they are just a human resource officer, whatever the case may be. And ensure that each date is clearly using the same format like I've mentioned on the other forms. The signature by the referee is clear, and the stamp is also on an official institution like I've mentioned. And then you merge the 2 PDF before you submit them, starting with your work experience one. So your work experience should be on top, and then the readership or your community involvement reference will be the second one. So start with your work experience. This is a clear and simple instruction that you should be able to follow. And that being said, those are the documents that you need to submit when the scholarship opens on the 9th of February 2026. The forms have already been published on the website. The only thing that you need to do is now get the forms, start brainstorming, list the type of work experience and leadership experience that you need to include in the form, then start completing the form, give the list of requirements to your referee for them to complete your references and to also complete the proof of leadership and proof of work experience well in advance. And once you get all the information, go through the documents, ensure that they meet the instructions that have been given. The documents that needs to be merged, you merge them, and then pack them as PDF in readiness for the scholarship. When the scholarship opens, you'll be able to upload write your motivation letter, your motivation for applying for the scholarship. And if you are selected, you'll be among the few selected to record yourself. You should be able to record yourself in a short video on what motivates you. I'll be able to provide a short instruction on how you'll be able to write that motivation once the scholarship is open and the question is provided in the scholarship application, so that I guide you clearly on how you should be able to complete the motivation and also submit the form. So with that said, thank you for reaching to the end of this video. Please, if you have any question, drop them in the comment section and I'll be able to respond to your question. And please do not forget to subscribe to my channel for more content on scholarship. And I wish you the best as you complete these forms and wait for the application to open. But please ensure that before the application for the scholarship opens, you submit your admission to the 4 courses. The list of courses is already out, so you simply go to the Swedish Institute website. You'll see the list of courses that are eligible for the scholarship. Then you go to the central portal and apply for admission to the 4 courses. Provide the information that is required for you to be admitted. Submit before the 15th of January 2025, because that is the deadline for the admission into the courses that you are going to select, the 4 courses. And ensure that you pay the application fee before the deadline that is provided on the website for your application for admission to be considered. Because without your application for admission to be considered, then applying for the scholarship will be useless, because that will not be considered. So you need to complete the first step before the second step comes. With that said, thank you very much for coming to the end of this video. If you've not yet subscribed, please hit the subscription button and follow my channel for more content on scholarship. Thank you and see you in the next video.